Hey everyone, Tactics here with more hero talent coverage for the War Within expansion, where in this video we're going to be covering the Deathbringer Death Knight, focusing on it from the perspective of a blood DK since I am a tank player. I've already covered a lot of the tank hero classes over on my channel, and will continue to have tank coverage as well as just a general expansion coverage throughout the alpha and beta cycles over on my channel. So if that sounds like content you want to see, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Otherwise, let's get into the talent tree. The big ability you're going to be getting here is actually a new one called Reaper's Mark. So you are getting a new button here. It's a 1 minute cooldown. So 2 runes cost. You slice into the soul of an enemy, you deal Shadow Frost damage, and you apply Reaper's Mark. Each time you deal Shadow Frost damage, it adds a stack of this mark. And then after 12 seconds or reaching 40 stacks, it explodes, dealing damage per stack. Reaper's Mark travels to an unmarked enemy nearby if that target dies, or explodes at 35% health when there are no enemies to travel to. This explosion cannot occur again on a target for 3 minutes. Okay, so basically there's some bad luck protection, I guess, in it, where if you put it on a target and they end up dying, you put it on the wrong target, maybe by accident, you're not totally screwed out of your damage. You're still going to have it travel to someone else if it dies in that time. And alternatively, too, it can proc, I guess, early, maybe every 3 minutes if a target goes into like execute range, I guess is the idea here. So a new ability, some sort of burst damage cooldown into a single target, it looks like. It says it explodes here, but it sounds like this is just single target damage initially. All right, so moving down here. Wave of Souls. Reaper's Mark unleashes a dark wave towards your target and back, dealing Shadow Frost damage both ways to all enemies caught in the path. Okay, so now this is the AoE portion. You're shooting a line out. I guess it's kind of similar to that, the trinket off of Gira in the current tier in Emergersil. Or is it only Agi wearers maybe? It like shoots this thing out and it comes back after the duration and deals damage to everyone in the path. So potentially you want to think about your positioning here and the mob's positioning on who you're targeting with the Reaper's Mark to get the most damage out of the wave. Wave of Souls, critical strikes cause enemies to take 5% increased Shadow Frost damage for 15 seconds, stack up to 2 times, and the wave back is always a crit. Okay, so again, you want to try and get this on as many targets as possible, especially in AoE pulls. Blood Fever here, your Blood Plague has a chance to deal 30% increased damage as Shadow Frost, so some more kind of Shadow Frost damage here, I guess, interacting with dealing the Reaper's Mark, and I'm assuming some other stuff later on here as well. More Shadow Frost damage, Wave of Souls as well. Horseman's Aid, Shadow Frost damage applies double stacks to Reaper's Mark and quadruple stacks when it's a critical strike. Okay, so yeah, so basically Wave of Souls on the way back is going to always apply quadruple the stacks of Reaper's Mark. Blood Plague, when it procs, can apply stacks, extra stacks of Reaper's Mark. Okay. And then for Blood, Rhyme Empowered. Okay, I assume this is backwards, actually. So I assume for Blood, it's actually Blood Boil deals Shadow Frost damage. Oh, so it's changing the damage type of Blood Boil to Shadow Frost and giving you all that other synergies. Okay, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. All right, moving down here. Shuddering Soul. Reaper's Mark explosion causes a piece of the target soul to tear out and spiral outward, dealing 10% of the explosion's damage to enemies it passes through. Enemies hit by this effect deal 5% reduced physical damage to you for 10 seconds. Okay, so it's now turning this into even more of an AoE. So you're dealing a big hit of damage to whoever you put this on. You shoot out this wave of souls as well between you and that target. And then also when this Reaper's Mark detonates, it deals AoE damage. So you probably for sure are wanting to put this on like primary targets and Mythic Plus, on the boss or a priority target again that spawns that you need to kill, on raid fights, that kind of thing. But it's now much more than just a pure single target. You're gonna be bursting pretty hard, and if you're watching your positioning, and I guess that's a little mini game, it's a bit weird as a tank because you can't do too much if you are trying to hit the primary target because all the mobs are going to be following you, right? But I guess as a DPS player, you can kind of adjust where you are around a pack to get the most out of your Reaper's Mark, or the Wave of Souls rather here. So that's nice for DPS players, but yeah, for tanks, it is a bit weird having a positional requirement thing on the actual tree here. But, you know, I guess it is what it is. Maybe that can be adjusted. Grim Reaper in the middle here. Reaper's Mark explosion deals up to 30% increased damage based on your target's missing health and applies Soul Reaper to targets below 35% health. So I assume bigger explosion on lower health targets. And again, you get a free Soul Reaper A lot of DK specs don't spec into Soul Reaper. Some do on pure single, some don't even then, depending on the situation. So getting some free execute damage as well. That's probably pretty minor overall, but the big increased damage based on target health is nice again. So it gives a lot more execute overall to DKs without them requiring to spec into Soul Reaper specifically. So that's kind of nice there. Death's Bargain. When you suffer a damaging effect equal to 25% of your max health, you instantly cast Death Pact at 50% effectiveness. So you get a shield. Only occur once every 2 minutes. When Reaper's Mark explodes, the cooldowns of this effect and Death Pact are reduced by 5 seconds. Okay, so some TDR on Death Pact and stuff, and this actual, it's not really a cheat death. I mean, Blood is going to kind of proc this on CD, right? So it might not be great. The other option here is Rune Carved Plates. Each rune spent reduces the magic damage you take by 2%, and each rune generated reduces the physical damage you take by 2% for 5 seconds, second to 5 times. So are you gonna be able to have 100% uptime on this at 5 stacks after you build it up? Of course, I'm not sure. It'll be close because you're just constantly regenerating runes and you're constantly spending runes, right? So it's like I assume you're spending and generating more than 1 rune every 5 seconds. So I feel like you'll be able to maintain this, assuming the stacks refresh each other and they aren't staggered like Ironfur. But usually if it's staggered like Ironfur, it'll say. So that's actually very nice for Blood, especially compared to Death's Bargain. I think Death's Bargain's bad for Blood, but Rune Carved Plates is very nice for Blood. Just again, and stacking with more DR over here, like any kind of DR for Blood is really useful because Blood's whole thing is just living a hit, right? As long as you can live a hit, you can Death Strike it back and recover. And having all these small DRs active, obviously this is not going to be active all the time based on the current talents I've read, but this, assuming how it works how I think it works, is going to be active all the time. And so that's a nice little thing to add into their arsenal, right? Combining it with all their other small DRs like Lichborn, Vampiric Blood, mixing it in with like AMS. Sometimes even AMZ is used as a personal cooldown in like 5-man content. Obviously in raids you usually need that for something, but at least in 5-mans a lot of the times you can throw AMZ down to help with magic damage, not one-shotting you, that kind of thing. So that's nice to see. Moving down, we've got another choice note over here on the left-hand side. Reaper's Mark cost is reduced by 1 rune, and its cooldown is reduced by 50%. Okay, so now you're getting more often. So 30-second CD, 1 rune cost, and it'll explode. I'm assuming you're going to be hit 40 stacks here instead of 12 seconds based on all the Shadow Frost synergy you have here. Maybe not, but let's assume you hit 40 stacks. So that's going to be very solid uptime on like this 5% DR. It's going to do a lot of damage because it doesn't reduce its damage at all here. So you're going to be having a lot of waves shooting out, a lot of AoE damage from the Shuddering Soul and the waves, a lot of single target priority target damage from the Reaper's Mark itself. Obviously, execute again, even more execute damage because you're now getting them more often in execute. So that's pretty solid. Painful Death is the other choice here. Reaper's Mark now explodes at 50 stacks. So again, assuming here you're hitting your stack cap relatively consistently, this is now going to explode for more damage because your stack cap is increased. And the first Scythe of Exterminate has a 100% increased chance to apply Reaper's Mark. Okay, Exterminate's the capstone. Okay, we'll look at that again in a second. Middle choice here, Dark Talons. While Icy Talons is active, your Runic power spending abilities deal Shadow Frost damage. So that's all of them because Icy Talons is active all the time for Blood DK, right? I mean, that's your goal. And outside of like your first Death Strike, it's going to be active. And on top of this, Mirror Rend and Heartstrike have a 20% chance to increase the maximum stacks of an active Icy Talons by 1 up to 2 times. So are you just going to be able to get 2 extra stacks of Icy Talons now on top of what you already can? That's pretty nice. That's just very nice. Just have a perma 2 additional stacks if that's how this actually reads. Like obviously you have to build up on an Icy Talons. But eventually, like if you are maintaining an Icy Talon, say at 100% uptime, on like a boss fight, like a 5-minute boss fight, right? Just as an example, is if you never let Icy Talons drop, once you've built up these additional stacks, are you just at this stack cap +2 the whole time? That's how it reads to me, which would be very, very good. And again, be very, very beneficial to never drop Icy Talons. So that's something there. Icy Talons is something you don't really think about right now because it just kind of maintains itself because you have so many incentives to Death Strike every few globals already. So, I mean, this is kind of, it just makes it so you want to do that even more. And there's a bigger hit to you if you let Icy Talons drop now, especially if you've spent all the time to get these procs to get the higher stack count. So something to keep in mind, but not something you're really going to think about too much, I don't think. Just again, Icy Talent's not something you think about. It's just kind of a passive bonus. The other one here, Wither Away. Blood Plague deals its damage in half the duration, and the second Scythe of Exterminate applies Blood Plague. Okay, so more Exterminate stuff. Blood Plague dealing its damage in half the duration, I don't think is too... it doesn't matter too much for Blood. I know the talent that kind of functions like this is Guardian Druids have Circle of Life and Death, right? And that one, honestly, it's like fine. It's not the best. Like it accelerates all of your dots by a lot, right? And sometimes it's a little bit annoying, kind of refresh all those. Blood Plague, though, it kind of is passively refreshed a fair bit because you're just going to be weaving in Blood Boils and stuff into your rotation. So I don't think it's a huge deal for Blood Boil, but half the time is a lot. So one, this could be a decent amount of damage. Two, this may end up being annoying to maintain depending on the actual, like, how long you actually have before you need to refresh, and if you're going to want to start Blood Boiling now when you normally wouldn't want to Blood Boil instead of like a Hard Strike or a Death Strike. So we'll have to see how it plays out here. Both of these, though, are pretty passive overall. One of these, again, more punishing if you're going to be dropping your Icy Talons. This one is just kind of, you need to make sure you're not dropping your Blood Plague, right? So different maintenance things here that you need to worry about with each of these talents. Right side, Death's Messenger reduces the cooldown of Lichborn and Raise Dead by 30 seconds. Okay, so you get more ghoul up time, and you get more Lichborns, which again, for Blood DK, you're often taking the Lichborn DR talent. So it's kind of a little cooldown to help you kind of live certain things, right? As long as you can live a thing, you can Death Strike it back up. Which again is nice. Again, we talked about how it's synergized with the rune carved plates. Is again, little DRs kind of stacking up on each other is really nice for Blood DK. So having CDR on Lichborn, which again you usually make into a DR, is pretty nice. That brings us to Exterminate, which interacts with a few of the other talents here. So after Reaper's Mark explodes, so boom, explosion, your next Mirror End costs no runes and summons 2 scythes to strike your enemies. Okay, so you're getting some free bone generation here. Because again, Mirror Rend, not usually something you press too often as a Blood DK in the current iteration of Blood DK. So getting some free Mirror Rends in there is actually pretty nice. It helps make bone generation a little bit easier. Something you think about less if you're just weaving in Mirror Rends all the time. I guess not all the time, but like if you're taking Swift End, that's once every 30 seconds, you're gonna get a free Mirror Rend, which is pretty nice. These 2 scythes, so the first scythe strikes your target for fizz damage and has a 15% chance to apply Reaper's Mark. So it has a 15% chance to just apply this again. Okay. So that's like Wind Fury cycling. You can proc on a proc. All right. The second scythe strikes all enemies around your target for Shadow Frost damage. Okay, so the first one is just on your target. Second one is an AoE. Okay, and so going back to this, the first scythe of the Exterminate has a 100% increased chance to apply Reaper's Mark. So this is now a 30% chance on the first scythe to get another Reaper's Mark. So this is basically you get Bigger's Reaper Mark, and you have an increased RNG to get Reaper's Mark from your Reaper's Mark. Okay. I mean, that, again, damage-wise, this isn't necessarily bad. The problem is this is RNG versus predictability. And having a 30-second burst damage window, or I guess not a window, but like you burst every 30 seconds, is pretty nice, right? That's very often. That's very valuable. In Mythic Plus, it's valuable. In Raid, it's valuable. It basically means you always have some sort of damage. So as a DPS player, usually I'm guessing you'll want to take Swift End. And I mean, tanks, I mean, just 30% chance is still not that high, right? For double the cooldown, I'm not sure if only having like a 25% increased power because it's going up 10 stacks, right? I'm not sure if this will be something you'll take. Potentially, but this is just half the cooldown, so you get twice as many casts, halves the cost, which is not a huge deal, but it is something, and it's just reliable, right? You can use this whenever you want to use it. And you're still getting a chance, right? So it's not like you're getting no chance. You still have a chance for these shorter ones to proc an additional one. So I'm guessing this one just seems a lot better. But, again, tuning-wise, could adjust that. Here, what we're talking about here, Blood Plague deals damage in half the duration, and the second scythe of Exterminate applies Blood Plague. Okay, so basically, again, we talked about how potentially this could make it so maintaining Blood Plague is a little bit annoying. So now every, again, maybe 30 seconds, maybe it's a minute, you're going to be getting a free Blood Plague without needing to press Blood Boil. So that alleviates some of that potential annoyance here a little bit. So overall, it's interesting. It's all around this new 1 minute cooldown, which you can reduce to a 30-second. You can make it bigger. It has some AoE potential. We'd love to know what you guys think about this. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know down in the comments below. And remember to subscribe to the channel for more War Within content just like this one. Of course, I want to give a massive thank you to all of my Patreon subscribers for their support. It really does mean a lot. Otherwise, thanks to everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.